As far as digital audio workstations go, oftentimes in the studio, especially people that are starting out, they're like, "Oh, which DAW is the best? Which one is for me?" And like that's an okay thing to do, but I kind of like am under the opinion that you should just pick a DAW and learn it. It doesn't matter which one, but pick it. And if it's not Pro Tools, you're wrong. I'm just kidding.
So okay, I'm about to do something, and I'm about to something. All right. So first off,
here it comes.
I use Pro Tools. There's the first sin that I'm going to give you. The second sin, I use Pro Tools on Windows because screw Apple. I hope we never get an Apple. I hope they never put money into us. I'm sorry. I hope if I can do any one thing to benefit this podcast, it's never to have them put money. Anyway, so okay, moving on.
And I will say that I turned Joe to the dark side of Pro Tools from Ableton.
Okay. First and foremost, I still use Ableton. I still use Pro Tools, and I still use what's the other one that I use? I'm trying to remember. I use it as like a.
You love it so much that you can't.
I still use
its name.
Ableton. It doesn't matter that much. Anyways, no. Honestly, here's the thing: as a Pro Tools user, you don't need Pro Tools. Now, there are some jobs where they're gonna expect you to know Pro Tools. And that's a part of the job thing. I'm sorry. That's what some people do. Whether it is good or not, I don't think it should matter personally. And I think like we've created this culture that surrounds Pro Tools. Like it's the industry standard. Oh, I'm going to be honest. You can make good mixes on any DAW if you're competent, minus maybe some of the cheap ones. I think Reaper is a great DAW. I think Logic is a great DAW. I learned on Logic first and foremost, and then I went to Ableton and then to Pro Tools. As I learned, and I'll be honest, the reason why I use Pro Tools isn't because I can't use another DAW. It's because Ben forced me to learn all the freaking hotkeys. No, he forced me to learn all this stuff.
Right? When you know all the key commands, right?
But that's the way it is in Ableton or in Logic or in any other DAW. And the more time you invest, the better you'll be.
Yeah.
Like I started off using using Acoustica Mixcraft 5. They're on
the heck is that?
They're on version 9 now, and they finally have some more like professional features included. But that's what I started on. Then when I went to school, I switched over to Logic and then did get into Pro Tools. And I stick with Pro Tools mainly because I have a great workflow in Pro Tools, and it's really conducive to the way that I work. But I have friends that for them, Pro Tools is not inspiring at all, and they would rather do everything in Logic.
Yeah, there you go. See? Inspiring. No, it's true. And I think the main point that we're trying to make, and our talking point was that all of the big DAWs can produce professional content. So all the big DAWs out there, there's, songs you've heard on the radio that have been,
Cubase, at least, Logic.
Yeah, produced on there or produced and mixed. There is some...
FL Studio, sadly.
Yeah, FL Studio, there's definitely songs. I can tell you some songs that are definitely FL Studio that are stock sounds on FL Studio.
Man.
And I know there's a lot of people, anybody who uses FL Studio will be like, hey, this sounds just like such and such song. Oh, yeah, it's because it was done on FL Studio. But there's plenty of DAWs out there, and you can produce professional content with it. There's a reason why Pro Tools is industry standard in a certain level. Like when you get a big studio and you got lots of inputs and outputs, it is a really stable system, and that's part of the reason why
as it crashes on us. Like, I'm sorry. Like, people talk about stability in Pro Tools, and I'll be honest, it can be stable,
especially the HDX system. Well, we're comparing.
The problem is that we're comparing Pro Tools native versus an HD system, and the HDX system. Pro Tools was never, or it wasn't originally intended to be.
Yeah, it was secondarily native. Yeah, so I mean, and that's the reason why, and the benefit of like what they've promoted, like, oh, you should use Pro Tools at home with the native version so that you can take your project and come into a studio and then just pick up right where you left off. But that can be done with other systems too. And there's lots of big studios that have a Pro Tools HDX system, and then they have other DAWs there too. But there's a reason why it's standard in those big studios, but it doesn't negate anything else, and it doesn't mean like everything else doesn't work well. And you know, and like especially in like composition for film and television, most of those composers use different programs to produce and compose the music.
Like
but then
DaVinci Resolve or like Avid Composer. Like there's a bunch of other
the
things.
Video. But yeah.
Yeah, but they have a lot of great, I've used it for audio too. They have a lot of great tools. It's not that bad.
To produce the music, they'll use Digital Performer and Logic and Cubase and FL Studio. And but then they have to actually send it over to stems in Pro Tools for it to be mixed a lot of times. And so it's, I guess getting back to the original point is all we're trying to say is that
Pro Tools is the best. Don't buy anything else.
You should be inspired by your DAW. And any of these DAWs can be inspiring and produce professional content.